This is my presentation on the Civil War and nursing. The Civil War was a 4-year war between 1861 and 1865 between the United States and the 11 southern states that had allied to form the Confederate States of America. Stated over this happened over a difference in views of slavery. Southern farmers relied on free labor, while northern states had industrialized as well as modernized. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected as president. He vowed to end slavery in all states and territories, and that is when the Confederate States was born. The North's victory ended up costing 625,000 lives and ended in the collapse of Southern resistance. Clara Barton was known as the Angel of the Battlefield. She lived in Washington during the Civil War. Barton provided nursing care and supplies for soldiers. She had provided 3 wagons of food and supplies for soldiers. In 1863, she traveled to Union controlled states of South Carolina and aided wounded soldiers. She also provided food and mail to the front lines. After her aid in South Carolina, Barton became sick, and she went back to the North. Wanting to still provide assistance, President Lincoln appointed Barton the general correspondent for the Friends of Paroled Prisoners. This allowed Barton to respond to inquiries about missing soldiers and trying to reunite them. After the Civil War, Barton took a trip to Switzerland and discovered the Red Cross. The Red Cross was a European humanitarian movement that provided neutral aid to those in combat. Barton brought this concept to America after volunteering in Europe. In 1881, Barton founded the American Red Cross and served as the American Red Cross president until 1904, marking 23 years. She went on to volunteer in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. Dorothea Dix was known as the Superintendent of Army Nurses. Dorothea Dix was born on April 4th in Maine, but was raised by her extended family and grandmother in Massachusetts. In 1836, after suffering mental issues, she went to Britain and met social reformers that inspired her mission. She returned to the U.S. and exposed widespread abuse in state institutions and started a powerful 1843 memorial to the Massachusetts state legislature. She continued numerous state legislatures to build asylums and eventually expanding her reform efforts into Canada and Scotland. In 1861, she was made the Superintendent of Army Nurses, despite having no formal medical training. She was deemed as strict due to her strict standards. She required nurses to be plain-looking, women aged 35 to 50 who wore unadorned dark dresses to ensure their safety and professionalism. She managed volunteers and insisted on treating both Union and Confederate soldiers. She helped in aiding 5,000 wounded Confederates after the Battle of Gettysburg. Post-war, she raised funds for a memorial at Fort Monroe and turned her reform efforts towards the reconstruction of the South. She was known as a vital figure who fundamentally changed mental health care standards and paved the standards for women in formal military nursing. Sojourner Truth was known as an abolitionist and women's rights advocate. Born into northern slavery in upstate New York around 1797 as Isabella Baumfree. After having several masters, she successfully escaped to freedom with her youngest child in 1826. In 1843, she renamed herself Sojourner Truth and began traveling and preaching. She historically encouraged African American women to consistently link the fight against slavery with the women's suffrage movement. Her wartime efforts and advocacy led to an invitation to the White House in October 1864, where she met President Abraham Lincoln to discuss her work and the plight of freedmen. During the Civil War, she supported the Union by traveling to recruit African American soldiers. She even encouraged her own grandson to join the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. She organized supplies like clothing, food, and blankets to support the troops. She visited military campgrounds to provide direct medical care and comfort. She worked with the Freedmen's Bureau to assist newly emancipated individuals during the transition out of slavery. Harriet Tubman was known as an Underground Railroad conductor, a nurse, a spy, and a suffragist. Born into slavery as Aramida Ross in Maryland, she endured severe abuse as a child. She then married a free man, John Tubman, in 1844 and changed her name to Harriet. She escaped to Philadelphia via the Underground Railroad in 1849. Over 11 years, she returned to Maryland numerous times, personally recruiting over 70 enslaved people, including many family members, and guiding 50 to 60 others to freedom in Canada. She famously noted that she never lost a passenger. During the Civil War, she served the Union Army as a nurse, scout, and spy. She heroically spied beyond Confederate lines. Tubman spoke her philosophies to generals and worked together to burn plantations, freeing slaves. She made meals for soldiers on the front lines and helped in segregated military hospitals. In June of 1863, she helped lead an assault along the Combahee River that liberated more than 700 enslaved people. She ended up settling in Auburn, New York, where she passionately championed the women's suffrage movement and established the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged. She passed away on March 10, 1913, and was buried with military honors. The Civil War was a way for women to participate and play a role in society. They sold clothes and washed clothes, writing letters, but mostly they had a great role as field nurses. Black women were also made nurses either hired or by their enslavers. Over 21,000 women served in Union military hospitals. These women put themselves in a very vulnerable position to help soldiers. Nurses during the Civil War built a strong and influential path for future military nurses, along with creating movements and organizations that live till this day. It is very important to recognize that these nurses' accomplishments and hardships as nurses today. These are my references, and thank you for listening.